would like to talk about myself a little bit. So I started my tech journey in 2015 without a mentor, without a tutor. I don't go to any tech hub. So I started learning basic. I learned C, C++, and Pascal back then before finding my way back in the web ecosystem. So I'm also a computer engineering graduate. I studied computer engineering University of Rio. So I'm a back-end engineer at Iroko Partners. At Iroko Partners, we have different products. We have Iroko TV, we have Raptures Entertainment, we have Ikenga, we have Blackbet, and Betty also. So depending on the quarter of the year, you find yourself working on different products. I can be working on Laravel, a Laravel project at Iroko TV. Then I find myself working on Node.js at Raptures Entertainment, which will work on comics also. I'm also a core lover of anime also. So please, next slide. So I'll be talking about real-time communication. So basically, please, does anybody have idea about real-time communication? Okay, talking of Facebook. Oh, that's a very nice answer also. So this, you have your normal web system, your server make requests, and your client make requests to the server. You get response from the server, and the page is being displayed to you, or data is being displayed on the front end to you. But what if you want your user to have instant updates, real-time updates? And we can see such like in financial markets where you're seeing prices of value of currencies fluctuating or prices of items going up and down. Web streaming applications like you can watch real-time, watch what is going on somewhere else. Real-time chatting like you have on your Facebook, you have on your WhatsApp. So what real-time communication actually does is to bridge that gap between user experiences and the digital experience also to make everything seamlessly so that users are able to get real-time updates and live updates. So, next slide please. So examples of real-time application, we have chat applications, we have editing tools like Google Docs, we have live streaming platforms, also like Twitch, YouTube Live, social media notifications, Twitter, Facebook, and other stuff like financial market trackers, sport boards, people that play sports too. That's all I'm saying. This is the next slide.
Talking about
okay. So for request response systems, we have the traditional and the real-time models. So as I explained earlier on, the traditional request model, you make a request from your browser, which is your client, or your Android app, back to your server or any API that is handling those requests. You wait for a connection to be established. You wait for a response to be returned back to the browser, which takes time. But let me say something like this. I'm working on an e-commerce platform or a marketplace where vendors have their products. And I want vendors to get instant notifications when somebody buy their items, when somebody make a purchase or order an item from their own store. So how do I get that done? I need a real-time model. That does not work with the traditional request response model. It's something I've encountered while working. I have to do something like vendors have to get instant notifications. If they are online, you can just be in your system. Somebody buy your product. You just get notification. Somebody has purchased your product. Your product has been delivered while you're online. Then if you're offline, so by the time you come online, so you also get a message that your product was being purchased and so quantity by so person from maybe a particular state also. So that's the bridge that the real-time system helps to solve, or those problems that we'll have encountered with our traditional model. Please, the next slide. Okay. So behind real-time systems, there is a core protocol, or the main power block of real-time systems is WebSocket. WebSocket allows us to instantiate constant communication between our client and server. If people that play COD, Call of Duty, can understand what I'm saying. Now you're playing games with people from different parts of the world. What enables that is WebSocket protocol. no matter the programming language being used, the core protocol behind everything is WebSocket protocol. So WebSocket protocol now allows you to maintain the connection between the client and the server. So live data, as you're playing your game, you're shooting, you're seeing that somebody at the other end is receiving bullets, you're shooting, or you can also talk with the person, and you also see the person movements in real time, in which you don't have to wait, or you don't have to reload your app or your web page for you to see what the other person is doing. So please, the next slide. So what are the advantages of WebSockets over our HTTP, or which the traditional model of data transfer? It reduces overhead. You can send data when necessary, and you reduce unnecessary server load. Like when I was working with real-time systems, I had to compare the time, or let me say the time complexity of the algorithm being run. I saw that when I was working with real-time systems, I can send data very fast and instant. Let me just assume that the real-time complexity can be something as like O of 1 instead of O of n, which means the number of data I'm sending, that's the number of, and that's how long I have to wait for the other person to receive something. So I can send data from the server and from the client, but in the traditional model, this is the core difference. The clients have to make a transfer first before the server will receive. But in this other case, if the server is ready to send data, it can send data anytime, and the client is ready to send data. The client can also send data anytime. That is, I can transfer data both ways, not instantiating the data or starting that process of data transfer from only the client alone. Please, the next slide. Okay. So for real-time systems, there are two core frameworks that we can use to achieve real-time systems. One of them is Node.js, and the second one is Laravel. So Node.js is very good for real-time applications. Most streaming platforms use different services, like different programming language, but for their real-time part, they make sure they are handling their real-time with Node.js. They can handle their authentication and any other thing, analysis. They can handle analysis with something like Python, since Python is good for analysis. When it comes to real-time application, I bet you Node.js is your best option. If you also check most Web3 applications, Node.js is also working for Web3. Very fine. Here's the next slide. So why do we choose Node.js for real-time systems? They have an event-driven architecture. That means if I have 5,000 persons trying to connect on a server, Node.js will scale perfectly as compared to other frameworks. That's where Node.js comes into play very well. And even as those users are connected to the server, there will be no interruption. That means a user is carrying out a particular process or doing something, it will not slow down or affect the second user as compared to some framework that you're going to use while building systems. Here's the next one. So if I'm working with Node.js, what I need, the core important library I need to set up a real-time system is socket.io. But underneath socket.io enables you to also use WebSocket. That's why I say no matter the framework you're working with or programming language, everything boils down to WebSocket. Please, the next slide. Okay. So if I'm working with Laravel, how do I get real-time server started in Laravel? Normally, I cannot just have direct access to WebSocket. So if I'm going to Laravel systems now, what I have, the first thing I have there is my pusher. But to make things much easier, we have Laravel Echo. Laravel Echo allows you to utilize pusher, which also allows you to utilize WebSocket. So with that now, I can perform real-time system of communication between my client and my server. And note, there's something very common. No matter the programming language you're working with, a particular principle you use in a particular programming language, you also use that principle in a particular programming language, another programming language. So if I know how to work with real-time systems in Node.js, I can easily work with real-time systems, Java, any other language you mentioned, maybe Python or even Laravel. It's just the same concept. That's why if they say you're learning a programming language, don't just learn the syntax of the language, learn by concept. It helps you so that you can easily move to a new language. And funny enough, if you're working, they don't give you enough time to learn things. Maybe I can be working with Node.js. I want to start a new project. You can say, please, you have only 1 month to prepare yourself to learn another language, and you have to learn it within that short time. Like the first time I worked with Socket.io, I had a course I have been keeping for months that I was supposed to use 3 months to study. I had to study within 2 days so that I can work with Socket.io before I was able to continue with the project I was working on. So that's how the tech system is. This is the next slide. So bidirectional data and communication, it's just the same thing I've explained, that I can send data from the server, I can send data from the client, instead of sending data from the client first before I get a response from the server. There's the next slide. Okay, so normally, if I'm setting a real-time system of communication, I don't just set only on the server. I also need something that the browser can be able to communicate from to the server also. So for me to do that, I have to set up a client-side implementation so that both the browser and the server can communicate in real-time system. So with that, I can establish WebSockets. If I'm using plain JavaScript, I can use library like Socket.io or Primus. Even though I'm working with React or Vue, I can still use Socket.io. This is the next slide. So handling real-time events in Laravel, I won't go deeper here, but please, if you want to learn more about real-time systems in Laravel, you can get a course. Most of the courses are not always that long if you're really dedicated to it. So we have event classes. Let me just give a brief explanation. So if I'm about to send something, I can have something like on emit. Then if the server disconnects, maybe somebody's network, where somebody was playing COD and your network just go off, it also sends to other devices that this person is no longer online. So by the time the person tries to connect again, to also send another event or like a signal. So that's what events are all about. But if you want to know more, you can just get a course from Udemy. I'm sure like within a little time, you have more understanding about real-time systems. There's the next slide. So now, there's one thing with real-time systems. I cannot use my normal server to handle real-time systems, especially when the number of users on my platform grow. The whole system will start to slow down. So most gaming platforms or most platforms that have real-time systems, like streaming services, financial markets, and sports scoreboard websites, what they do is that they have different servers. Maybe sometimes they can condition to different regions. Maybe they have servers that handle users from Africa. They have servers that handle users from Europe or America per se. So there are different servers so that you can reduce the load. And if I'm building a platform that has real-time system, I have to use microservices. That means I have a service that handles only real-time systems so that that service can be on. And if there's an issue, even though the real-time system breaks down, other systems can still function. You can still log in, you can still do other things on the platform, but that particular part of the website is still up and running. But most of the time, you merge everything together. If something breaks, the whole site is down. And you will have similar experiences that you go to some website, you cannot do a particular thing, but that functionality are working. Just check the website, you see that they are using microservices. Please, the next slide. So for security, if you're working with real-time system, not just because you can connect your client to your server freely, you just have to forget about things like authentication and the rest. Maybe if you the first time you're working with real-time system, that excites me and like wow, you're like wow, this thing is working. You forget about authentication and every other thing. You still have to authenticate users so that you can protect data. And that is one core thing as like a professional you need to consider. Security and best practices. You have to consider those things. You don't always try to rush things over. Make sure that everything is okay. Everything is okay because that's why you're being paid as a professional. So that the business will not fail. Because if you leak data, you can make that business to collapse. Maybe you leak data, competitors will have access to the data, and who knows how our business will be. So you have to also consider all that things too, and know why you're being paid as a professional. Also integrate real-time systems from your hardware, live scores, and financial markets too. So that's the end. And my name is Maamaa on all social media platforms. You go to Facebook, Twitter, It's Victor Maamaa I do use consistently. Thank you very much.